In the spring of 1973, Led Zeppelin would be touring the United States on the back of their fifth studio album, Houses of the Holy. The tour was a massive financial success, raking in more than $4 million, but out of that total, almost $200,000 went missing, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's video.
How these bands didn't go to jail is beyond.
Beginning on May 4th, 1973, Led Zeppelin would play a 30-day tour across the United States and Canada. The band kicked off the 6-week tour in Atlanta, where they played to 40,000 fans at Brave Stadium. The following night, they performed in Tampa to 57,000 fans at Tampa Stadium. Led Zeppelin would surpass the Beatles record for the largest concert in American history. The band had a lot to celebrate, as they set records for attendance and box office earnings on this tour, but by the end of it, the unexpected happened. Money went missing. From July 27th to July 29th, the band concluded the tour with 3 shows at New York's Madison Square Garden. These were the gigs that Led Zeppelin performed as part of the Song Remains the Same concert movie that would come out 3 years later in 1976. During Zeppelin's residency in New York, the band was staying at the Drake Hotel, and sometime between the second and third show, $200,000 went missing from the band's safety deposit box, which was double locked. Tour manager Richard Cole would...
So you mean to tell me, not only they double locked the safe, it got to be your manager.
Like, they personally checked the safe on July 29th at 1 a.m., and the money all appeared to be there. But by 7:30 p.m. the same day, Cole would confirm that about $200,000 went missing, but the thief seemed to have not taken the band's passports so they could return home. Police were called to investigate, but the authorities couldn't find any evidence that the safe was tampered with. It would seem bizarre that the band would keep so much cash on them, but Cole reportedly told investigators that the money came from their current tour and that the quartet had, and I quote, a lot of expenses to pay. The New York Times would report, and I quote, some detectives wondered privately why the band cashed its garden receipt check and taken the $1,800 $100 bills back to the hotel. But a publicity man for the group, Danny Goldberg, said that the banks had been closed over the weekend and that some of the cash had been needed to, and I quote, pay off debts. The Times would report that Led Zeppelin had a pre-dawn party back at their hotel following their second show in New York, and their road manager, Robert Cole, was the only person who had a key to their safe, and the police soon determined that the safe was not tampered with. Cole would submit to and pass a lie detector test. The police believe that someone may have stolen Cole's key at the band party during the early hours of Sunday morning, opened the safe, and then returned the key. The police would question hotel employees, the members of the band themselves, and their groupies who attended the party. The culprit would never be caught.
See, that's the bad part about having the groupies and bringing people back to your hotel room, man, and all that. You can't really do nothing. Then your manager passed the lie detector test, so you really don't know
that the band did it for publicity. A few years ago, guitarist Jimmy Page would recall that very night on social media, writing, on this day in 1973, Led Zeppelin played the last night of Madison Square Garden. This was the final night of our American tour here at Madison Square Garden, recording and filming the concert. I was informed as we were on the side of the stage just before going on to perform that there had been a robbery at the Drake Hotel where the safety deposit box had been relieved of cash the previous night. Somehow all this manifested in even more passion in that night's performance, he would say. According to Wattpad.com, Led Zeppelin allegedly sued the hotel for theft and never stayed there again. 2 years later, Led Zeppelin will return to America, and let's talk about what happened on that tour. Ahead of Led Zeppelin releasing their sixth record, Physical Graffiti, in February of 1975, the band was planning on doing a winter tour of America. Led Zeppelin at this point in their career were one of the biggest rock bands in the world, and their tours became known for their excess and debauchery. But ironically, it was not the band themselves, but their fans that got Led Zeppelin banned from the city of Boston. That's pretty amazing, considering that Boston's mayor at the time wasn't some sort of anti-rock crusader. In fact, he went to pretty extraordinary lengths to bring some major rock acts to the city of Boston, going as far to bail out one band out of prison. Author Stephen Davis, who covered Led Zeppelin during their 1975 tour, claimed to WGBH.org, Boston was a very important town for Led Zeppelin. They broke out from England in the early days in early 1969 at the Boston Tea Party Club, where they played a series of tumultuous shows. And then in 1969, 1970, and 71, they came back around 9 times, and they played kind of everywhere, he remembered. As part of their 1975 tour in America, Led Zeppelin was planning on doing a show at the Boston Garden on February 4th. Before the days of the internet,
September
fans
9th.
had to line up outside of
They
the
had
venue's box
a date
office
on
to
my
purchase
birthday.
tickets. On January 5th of that year, it was announced that tickets for the show would go on sale the following morning. One estimate put the number of tickets being sold at around 9,000. On the evening of January 5th, it was estimated that around 3,000 fans showed up to get their place in line to buy tickets. But not helping things was the fact that it was January, the temperatures were almost freezing, and a lot of people weren't dressed for the weather. As the night wore on, it got colder,
Y'all lived
so
there.
around 11 p.m. the box office
Unless they had like a lot of fans probably fly in from other places, but they say they broke in Boston.
staff
So wouldn't
allowed
you know how to
the
dress in
fans to camp
January
out
in
in the
Boston?
lobby of the venue under the condition they would behave themselves. And, well, you can guess what happened next. Things went awry during a security shift change when, according to Davis, the kids broke into the beer concessions and started feeding themselves. And when the next shift came on, they turned the fire hoses on them. Then they turned the fire hoses on Boston Garden. Then they started to torch the seats, you remember. According to the website CelebrateBoston.com, 11 concession stands and 2 souvenir kiosks were broken into, and 300 cases of beer were looted and consumed on site. In addition to the fire hose fights, fire extinguisher fights also occurred, which left a chemical residue throughout the venue. The rowdy crowd also managed to drag a piano out onto the ice and damage it. Riot police with dogs would be called in to quell the crowd, and by 5:30 a.m., everything seemed to be under control. What's amazing, though, is that there were no arrests and no injuries, despite the fact that police confiscated several knives. I've seen varying estimates of how much damage was done to the Boston Garden, and they seem to range from $10,000 to $50,000. Davis, who was in Boston at the time, went down to the venue following the riot and would tell the same publication the place was a smoking ruin. It was completely flooded. It was like the place had been bombed, he'd remember. The tickets would go on sale to the public at 2 in the morning, and by 6 a.m. they were all sold out. Following the mayhem, Boston's Mayor Kevin H. White banned the group from playing the city for up to 5 years, refusing to issue them a permit. White wasn't some sort of anti-rock crusader. He served 4 terms as Boston's mayor and was popular with the city's rock-loving fans. Following Martin Luther King's killing, riots broke out across the city, and James Brown was scheduled to play a concert in Boston the next day. The city's police chief was hesitant about whether allowing 15,000 people into a venue so close to the site of the riots was a good idea, and Brown almost canceled the show. White would persuade the singer to do the show and even appeared with him on stage to appeal for calm. Then in 1972, the Rolling Stones were scheduled to play Boston, but they were arrested in Rhode Island, which threatened their date in the city. White was able to persuade the authorities in Rhode Island to release the band from prison so they could make it to their show in Boston. When Led Zeppelin did their final tour of North America in 1977, they would skip out on Boston as their band still persisted. Funny enough, though, Led Zeppelin wasn't the only group to be banned from playing the Garden. The Grateful Dead were banned after they were caught cooking lobsters near a fire escape, and the group Kiss was banned because
they was caught cooking lobsters.
They did not adhere to the venue's pyrotechnics policy. It would come out years later that Led Zeppelin's guitarist Jimmy Page wasn't even aware of the ban. He would take to social media several years ago and say, "I was blissfully unaware of any of these shenanigans, but the mayor was by all accounts a Rolling Stones fan. I played in Boston again in 1995 at the Fleet Center with Page and Plant," he'd remark. Meanwhile, White would serve 4 terms in office and would be the subject of several corruption investigations that he would escape charges from. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure
this was a whole lot of debauchery going on with that money. They playing with your money in Boston, huh? They playing with your money in Boston. Your fans get you banned because they almost light the Garden on fire, obviously. They dragging pianos on the ice. But the mayor was a rebel himself. He out there probably stealing money off the top. He got corruption scandals on his name. It sounds like indie rock artists at this time should have just stayed out of Boston. Stayed out of Boston. And I don't know. Another lesson learned for this too: don't take everybody to your hotel room, man. Don't take everybody to your hotel room. They missed out on $200,000. They owed people. Like, they owed people $200,000 and they lost it. I know they probably got it back. They sold out their tickets. They started selling them tickets at 2 a.m. and they were sold out at 6 a.m. They got that money back very fast. But who wants to lose $200,000? I don't care if I got it back fast. Nobody wants to do that.